exciting episode of Chat at the Box. This is a regular conversation style activity that we have that goes on YouTube. You can check us out. And today we're joined by very interesting experts who are here to elucidate on something that is very topical currently. My name is Mary Gitari. I am the PR expert at Sandbox. I run a PR company called Brandspark PR. And I am joined by my fellow colleagues at the Sandbox. I'd like us to start with our far right, everybody to tell us who they are, what they do in the shortest amount of time possible.
Okay, thank you, Mary. My name is Stephanie Goku. I am the founder and managing partner at Upscale Consulting. At the Sandbox, I'm the investor readiness expert, supporting entrepreneurs to be investor ready so that they can access capital in order to scale. Thank you, and looking forward to a great conversation.
Okay, my name is Joram. I am the CEO, founder Wild and Sandbox. I'm a strategy and entrepreneurship expert. And I am happy to be here.
Thank you.
I cannot wait to get into this conversation.
I'm Timothy Gadima. My company is Collect Pro Limited, and we handle the credit lifecycle within the Sandbox, meaning that any credit management related issues facing companies, we are the ones who handle that.
Thank you. Jan?
And my name is Jan Okonji, founder of Business Growth Solutions and the startup expert at the Sandbox.
My name is Maureen. I run a design and innovation consultancy called Spindle Design, where we help companies go from idea to launching products in the market.
So like any other forum, the Sandbox has a village WhatsApp group. And I happened to share an image that I was very surprised at the response that it elicited. It was about the white founders and black founders, white capital. Mm-hmm. And it had a list of all these white people who are running some of the most amazing businesses we know currently, from Jumia to Link to Sandy to Twiga Foods. And these people here brought in such a fight into that group discussion. I thought, why don't we make this exciting and share it with the world? Because I know everybody out there had the same thoughts. Joram, I'm going to start with you. You're the first person who reacted when I posted that image.
Yeah.
Why was it so important for you to give us your comments then?
First, let me breathe in and out. I guess it's because I've been part of that conversation in several groups. And every time that conversation comes up, it elicits such strong emotions that there's almost no room for alternative thoughts in that argument. And I happen to be one of the people who is probably on the Lone Ranger side, where I think that when we say there's bias in fundraising of where white founders get money easily and black founders have a harder time, especially if they don't have a white co-founder raising money. I think there's some truth to it, but I just don't agree. I think first, like that's not the entire picture, and I think when we also focus on that, one of the reasons I think that conversation came up again, because not the first time we're seeing that image, is because we have the whole Black Lives Matter thing going on in the US. And so I think this issue came to ride upon that issue, and I just find like it's completely misplaced. We're having the wrong conversation. That's my standpoint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Masha, you were very quick to share your thoughts and even send us a picture of your topic there. You said you'd raised capital before.
Yeah.
Why? What do you think about that image?
I just on the image itself, I think it's, to Joram's point, it is emotive, and I actually think it is designed to be emotive. Mm-hmm. So then it takes a certain level of stepping back to have an objective discussion about capital and raising capital within this ecosystem, especially for Black founders. That is just about the image. My experience, because this is my third startup, and before we have done cycles of trying to engage investors, trying to raise capital, and are also doing so now. and I've had definitely a skewed experience. I wouldn't say that my rebuttal to Joram was this we cannot or we should not in good conscience deny that bias does exist in funding non-white startups. To objectively engage in the conversation and to understand it, you first have to come from the premise of, yes, bias does exist. It would be naive, I personally think, to say that it does not exist.
Yeah.
Okay, having established that, how is that expressed and what can we do about it? I think is a conversation that we should be having. So to Joram's point that we are making bias the issue, I do think to some extent that is a distraction from all of the other things that we could do about it. But I think to deny it is a kind of like it's a certain naivete which I don't think we can or should hold in this ecosystem as it's continuing to mature.
Okay. Now, John, you deal a lot with mindsets and entrepreneurs and helping them just to have the right mindset when it comes to either fundraising or starting their businesses. What does this mean to you? What does this whole conversation mean to you?
Oh, thanks, Mary. I mean, first of all, on the picture, it was sensational, but that's social media for you, isn't it? We want the hits, we want the likes, we want the traction. So sensationalism is part of our life now. And the issue is now separating truth from fiction. Is the bias there? The bias is there. I hope we discuss it, and we should discuss it. And we should talk about, the black founders vis-a-vis the white, financials. It's very important. It's the reality of where we are right now. That being said, Maureen said my exact answer, which is we should ultimately, as we wade into those emotional waters of color and race and all this, ultimately we should come up with a solution to all this, especially for the businesses and the startups who are watching this. So with the two, yeah.
Okay. I will add something on mindset, which I think Jan has talked about in the past. And this comes back to this conversation where sometimes we can try and swing the pendulum all the way to the other side and say, okay, let's balance it out. And then the mindset therefore for black founders becomes one of entitlement, which means the thing that we keep bringing to the table is not worth bringing to the table. And that also opens another whole can of worms in terms of how do you actually approach investors and do your pitch deck and all of those things, which I know we'll discuss. But I think it's something that we should at least keep top of mind in terms of how we can swing our mindsets all the way to the other side of the pendulum.
Yeah. Okay. Stephanie, you have a lot of experience in helping entrepreneurs raise funds. Tell us some of this experience.
My experience has had a mix of feelings. I wouldn't say that the bias, of course, it's not openly, shared when those moments of pitching or sharing the opportunities is openly shared. But just to share an experience of someone I was helping just to put some things together, their documents together. And basically, it's a lady, and she had very interesting tech solution. And she did mention to me that an Asian friend actually outrightly mentioned to her that if you really want to raise good money, it's advisable that you get a white co-founder and gift him 1% or whatever percentage in your company.
Token co-founder. Why didn't I know this 15 years ago?
And what would happen is that this white co-founder is the one who is going to be representing her in the meetings, that white face, and that was going to enhance her chances. Well, she didn't feel comfortable. She had really worked through whatever solution that she was working. But what happened eventually is that this white co-founder actually went ahead and started a solution that was almost similar to what she had. And he had some black people working for him, but with time, I guess he felt like he wanted to take over the whole thing. So what happened is that with time, that business didn't progress as she hoped. So it got another co-founder. They closed that shop in whatever name it was and founded another. And my friend here was not able to really proceed as she would have anticipated because she did not get funding.
Wow.
But these guys were able to move forward. So really, when we talk about these things happening, and I've come across this a lot. Again, what is happening, if it is not a white co-founder, most of the pitches that are shared with me, I have noticed that to a large extent, if it is not a white co-founder, there's a white in the board of whatever. Yeah, in the
So
board,
it sort of like eases the fundraising process.
Well, you know, I at first I really never thought, I thought it was really, these guys were really part of, you know, of the business, until after some time when this conversation enlisted elsewhere, not even, way before even here. And it got me thinking, so that's why we have these white co-founders and board, you know, appearing, because you find some of the people you try to find out the connection of where they have engaged with these white co-founders, and it's not there. So really makes sense to some extent. That's why we are having this happening.
Okay, let me allow Timothy to tell us what he thought of the image before
Joram
we
is
go.
boiling.
I know, and I
I
can
feel like
see.
I need to sanitize
sanitize
some
your
water.
heart. Sanitize your heart.
Because
Okay, so mine is more of like I'd say man on the street view,
Yeah.
which is what I'm hoping to bring to this panel in terms of balance. It was, of course, you know, when you look at that image, I've seen it before, and it was okay, yeah, well, we all know that this happens,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. I'm not surprised, but then you can also understand the image when you go through, like, this is CEO, this is COO, this is CFO, and so there probably was a black CEO, but they chose to show the white COO or the CFO or whatever. So it was done deliberately to elicit that reaction. But we do know, and I can say personally, I do know that there is a bias that exists. We've heard of stories of co-founders, one white and one black, and the white guy was confessing and saying how when he was doing his pitch, or when they were doing the pitch, when he made a mistake, the people he was talking to would take it as if, you know, well, you just made a mistake, and would actually correct him and accept it that you probably just had a slip of the tongue or you misanswered the question. And he said that he knows that if it was a black person, they would have looked at it from a perspective of you are not prepared, you didn't have all your things
We were
in
hard
check.
on ourselves.
We are hard on ourselves, but we have to understand that the world is going to be hard on certain demographics, if I can say that.
Yeah.
We always talk about just, you know, as a rough example, we always talk about how it's easier for men to do business than it is for women, because there's a certain audacity that men have.
Let's have that
Amen. That's our next
So,
chapter.
you know, so
that's
there's a
not
certain-
today's battle.
That's not today's battle. That's
yeah.
not today's battle. But you know,
We'll come back to that.
but to sit and say that, it doesn't exist, I think would be the wrong thing. And maybe, like Maureen had said, what we should be doing is saying, if it does exist, how does it exist, and what are we going to do about it? Because there is certain things that we have to take into account when you're going to ask somebody for capital. If someone comes to ask you for money for a business venture, you as an individual, and they're asking you for 10,000, 100,000, whatever it is, you're going to ask them questions. And they have to be ready to answer those questions. It doesn't matter if it's your brother, if it's, okay, it might matter if it's your brother, and you're like, you know what, I can lose this money, and that might be part of what we call the bias.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you want certain fundamentals to be in place. Do you understand the business? Am I getting my money back? Am I willing to lose this money? Am I, you know, is it profitable what you're getting into? Do you have checks and balances? And I think that is where eventually we will end up, you know, and to a greater extent, that is why we are all sitting here, because we came together to say certain things have to be in place for businesses, because we can't keep doing things business as usual. You can't say I am black and therefore I'm marginalized and therefore you ought to give me money,
No.
or I am white, or I have a white co-founder, and therefore you want to give me money because I have this great idea. And you tell them, tell me about your great idea, and they're like, it would be really cool if I could sit on this chair and all my thoughts could be downloaded. But it is a great idea, but can you operationalize that idea? What is behind it? So I guess I don't know if I've gone in 10 different directions, but I am here to add fire to the wood.
I can jump in and draw you to one direction.
Yes.
Because, so this is my standpoint. I think that the bias issue got a disproportionate amount of attention. And when it does that, it draws us away from the bigger picture. Because there are a lot of issues around this. Number one, I have a key question of why are we fighting a battle in Silicon Valley instead of right here at home? And that brings in the whole question of local capital. We know so many billionaires in this, our Nairobi. Why is it that they only invest in property?
Yeah.
We have pension funds that have been given the leeway to invest up to 10%, is it 20% of their income into equities. That amount right now, because I think their assets are something like $1 trillion, whatever, actually works out to about 100 billion shillings that should be available to go towards the equities. So I've seen us put a lot of effort into, can we have a conversation with the white-owned venture capital firms? And I'm like, why can't we have that conversation with Chris Kirubi, James Mwangi, put a few of these people in the room and say, anyway, let's have a proper conversation around why aren't you guys investing in Kenyan startups? Isn't that an easier battle to fight than say, let's take this battle to, San Francisco or New York or whatever that is? And after all, it's their money. So are we going to convince them to change their perception about their money? Why not change our own people here, the pension fund managers, the billionaires, and all sorts of things? I think that's an easier battle to fight, and the battle that will be more sustainable than taking the fight to the white-owned venture capital firms. That's just one of the issues. The other one is, I think we feed the beast when we perpetuate that myth, and then people feel they have to go and get a white co-founder to be able to get funding, because that white co-founder will, in a sense, blind whoever is funding them, and they'll get money even for a bad idea. No one asks them hard questions around their pitch, their financials, and all these sorts of things. So I think people should always be bringing their A game. Make sure your pitch is good, and I review a lot of pitches, and I'll be honest, I don't review a lot of pitches of white co-founders. But of course, I work primarily with, black co-founders.
Yes, yeah.
And I look at, we tend to be not very good at telling our story. Number two, when we get funding, we don't announce it, so we don't attract more funding. The white guys, they'll get $500,000, it will be in the newspapers the next day. Other venture capitalists see it and say, oh, they are fundable, so they'll go after it. Us guys, I guess because people in shags will start asking us for Harambe money the next day, we keep it a secret, and then we struggle through. Yet we have the opportunity, if we just went open about it, to raise a lot more money.
Let me ask
As
you,
in, I can keep going on and on and on and on and on.
Let me ask,
Not him on
Maureen,
Yeah.
you have
They
raised
wait for
capital.
Huh?
You've raised capital. Who did you tell when you got money? Please give us the full experience. How you raised it, how much you got, and
Where
what
you
did,
announced it.
and where you announced it.
To date, I don't think we've ever announced that we were part of a program and we got funding. I think I told my mom.
After how long?
Like yesterday. That was, I don't know, like
How much did you
5
raise?
years ago. But Joram is making some salient points. We worked across 14 countries in Africa, and we tend to work a lot with foreign companies that are coming into the market and they want to launch new products. So they come to us and they're like, we need to validate the idea, we want to do prototypes, we want to research, we want to build a product. And a lot of the process that they go through is to get this idea to something that is actually tangible, has been verified, has been validated, and therefore is worthy of bringing people in. Sometimes, and this is something that I did, and a lot of us used to do, we sit in our cocoons. I used to be a developer. So we sit in our bedrooms and we code, and then we put something out into the market. And then we wonder why no one flocks to it, because we've talked to nobody about it. You've not gotten any advisors, you've not done any market research, which also makes it very difficult to do some of the things Joram is talking about. Telling your story is a story beyond just you. It's a market, it's business, it's financials, it's your team, it's how you're going to take it forward, it's how you're going to enter the market. And I think we as an ecosystem need to get better at that. On the other hand, of like preparing African guys that have money within this ecosystem, there's folks like Victoria that are doing a lot of sensitization with the who's who to come and reinvest back into the market. And truth be told, a lot of that work needs to be done.
Who's
Because
Victoria? Could you just tell us?
Victoria Ventures.
Ventures. Okay, just for the people on the street.
Yes.
So what is
there's parity.io, there's GetRaise, who are also just trying to help local companies and local startups get out there and get noticed. So there are those platforms. I tend to encourage folks, just like dot your I's and cross your T's, so that when you get to that place, you can call on something other than bias to say, I've done my homework, I've done my due diligence, etc. And that also makes it easier to go to Jan and say, hey Jan, I need a million for this thing. Are you willing to invest? And there are entrepreneurs that have done that in this ecosystem. We ourselves have done that in this ecosystem and gone to just Kenyans that are willing to invest in a company, willing to invest in building a product, and they've helped us. So I think there are a lot of options, and I don't think that there's something like white capital. There's capital. You need
color?
What do you need?
So capital.
Oh, you don't agree?
Well, yeah.
There's white capital.
Then, okay, here's the thing. I mean, I think before we go into mindset, which you alluded to earlier, and I will go into that, we have to be bold enough to face the reality. The reality is, one, that there is white-black bias in
Me, I'm
African
saying white
business.
capital.
White capital. It is
What
there.
is that?
It is there. And also, that's one, it's there, I'll defend that one. The second thing is, Maureen, we have to ask ourselves, we have to look at the second fact, which Joram did allude to, that the African businesses or the founders of startups might not be up to scratch as the core white founders. And then the third thing is to look at the reality behind that. There are certain things that white co-founders or if there's something the owners of white capital have that then the blacks don't have, which might be access to Ivy League schools, abilities to travel to other countries. They have friends who are already well established and are able to then, white friends who are able then to finance businesses.
Even low percentage in borrowing.
Exactly, and if you look at the fellow black people who can go toe to toe with these companies, some of them which are here have gone to relatively good schools, have gone to good neighborhoods, So I mean,
Group of travel.
yeah,
Travel.
have traveled. Exactly. So the bigger question is then, okay, we know this is the reality. What then do we have to do to change that? But we can't say it's not there. We need to know it's there. Okay, fine. Then what are these guys doing? And I don't want it to look like these guys and those guys, because as we grow, true, capital doesn't have a color. As we grow as black companies, hey, I want to hire some white guys. I want to do that. Yeah? But it's my company. Yeah, I want to, and I think that's very important. But the reality is that it's there. Some of the mindsets is, and this is the reality for us. And I don't like stereotyping, but studies have been done, and it's true. There is a savior complex. We have that in Africa. Somebody's going to be the government, it's going to be my dad, somebody's coming to save me. And that's also one of the contributing factors. The second thing is also, you want to keep a lot of stuff to yourself. It's about competition as opposed to collaboration. And the third thing is also victim mentality. I can't do it because of the political climate, because of the weather, because of the devil, because of so many things. And that's just insane in a social media context, because we're living in an age where we have so much access to information. Your business is just one click away. Instagram, Facebook, a lot of these things are free. There's a free training, I think being conducted today by Wild on Facebook. So there are so many opportunities to grow, but the only way you can grow, I think in in neuroscience for the mind, there's something called RAS, reticular activating system, which basically says what you focus on. Yeah, what you focus on is what you get. So it's very hard for you to focus on growing your business and getting to that level. You're focusing on the reasons why you can't get there. It sounds very basic, but yeah, those are the realities. But white capital, it is there. What we have to ask ourselves is, why is it there?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's maybe
And I,
maybe
One second.
maybe just
You
a
go
quick
first.
maybe just a quick interjection. Maybe just a quick interjection. You know, when we're talking about capital, there's various forms, various stages, various amounts. So, for the sake of this conversation, maybe just for my understanding, are we talking about amounts $10,000 and above? You know, because there are certain things which, when you start talking about certain investment levels, when you're starting a business, you need 100,000 shillings. You don't necessarily need to have this entire, plan, etc. You probably raise that from friends, from the savings, from whatever it is. We've seen businesses in Kenya that have raised a lot of money from just their local activities, but a lot of them have been around real estate. You know, real estate development. There's money here in Kenya, and it's evidence even at the bottom of the pyramid, because we have people gambling up to 1 billion shillings per day. So the money is there. What levels are we talking
Actually,
about?
bigger
I was
than
going to jump onto his
bigger
point.
than financial capital, because when people think capital is money,
Yes.
but bigger than that, actually what I was more alluding to, and not sound deep or intense, but it's social capital. Because you want to be successful in business, there are 3 things to be successful. You need the high income stream, that's the first thing. The second thing, you need the structures. And then the third thing, of course, you need that mastery in communication. And this is where the white co-founders get it very right, especially in terms of financing, that ability to communicate your story. And that's what a lot of us lack. So a lot of the biggest companies are formed on a very low capital money base, but your ability to communicate this grand vision. And I think that's where the whole mindset aspect.
Wow.
So I
I
can
think
go
you
now.
can finally jump in.
So I was going to say,
He's been
I was
trying
going
to
to say, even just picking up from your point, a lot of fundraising happens through relationships.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's one of the things that we ignore, that a lot of the people who raise that money, even in the group I threw it in, that even when you go back to the US, you find a lot of people who raise money are actually Jews. And it's because it's part of a network. It's in my family, my dad can make a phone call and, I can get in front of the whatever. A lot of the tech businesses that grew significantly in the last 40 years, if you look at their parents, they're Jews and they're connected to some kind of Jewish network that is able to open up that whatever. And that's why you also have the same happening in Israel, where tech companies are able to raise such significant funding because it's concentrated around a certain religious community. But that aside, one of the things that fueled this conversation in Kenya was a report by Village Capital that said 90% of startup funds go to white-owned businesses. And one of the things I disputed in that particular, because I actually took time to ask people around, did Village Capital talk to you? You work with entrepreneurs who raise money. Did they interview you before this? And these are significant organizations, East Africa Venture Capital Association, Stephen Gugu and the like. And I think that somebody did a desk research, but didn't go deep enough. Because when I look historically, some of the Kenyans who've raised the largest amounts of money, James Mwangi, and that money was actually from Nigeria. Yeah, when you look at the fund that invested into them. Peter Nduati of Resolution Health, Ken Njoroge of Cellulant. People mistake Twiga to actually be owned by Grant Brook, but the key person behind it is Peter Njonjo. And so 7 Seas Technologies, if you look at company after company that raised money and some exited down the line and exited at very huge amounts, I'm not sure that some of these things are being captured. I raised money within that year. I don't know if what I raised was captured in that
Although-
particular
I didn't see you on the
report.
list.
Yeah, I was not on the list.
Although Joram,
So, of course, I didn't announce it because of my relatives. But that
You don't
just
have a
goes
white
to
coat.
show, yeah, and I don't have a white
actually,
coat.
they did do a study. They say startups who have received $1 million funding upwards across Africa,
Mhm.
they found only 6% of those received funding from Black.
So one of my assertions
I
is that information is limited because I know a lot of black to black companies, and I've even raised money from wealthy families here or wealthy Asian families, and I don't know that information is being captured anywhere because there is no authority that forces us to report when
Yes.
we raise money. So there is a whole picture that we don't get to see. I had a friend who was running a farm where they were loaning money to people. He's an investor, very wealthy family that has a lot of land. I'll not mention where.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's where the money came from. So I don't feel like some of these things are being captured.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, we don't have a full picture. I would be much more comfortable if we had a lot more data saying, this is the amount of money locally, this is the amount of money that comes foreign, and this is the proportion. If you look at those white faces there, we even counted them, they're about 20 or 30 or 40 at most faces. How many startups do we have in Kenya today? Thousands, probably.
Yeah.
I
What
saw there was a
percentage-
corrected version of the
Of that,
the
they are
WhatsApp
trying to
image
show the
that
black,
now there was a
the black
founder.
co-founders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what percentage of that is you know of the total number of startups, and also if we were to just truthfully tell how many black people have raised money and they come and declare it.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a group we were having this argument in. I know 3 people in that group raising capital from either from whites or blacks, and they did not stand up to speak and say, I've raised capital. So I'm like, there's a very skewed picture around this because we will hide it as much as we
Stephanie
can.
has a checklist. You know, she told me she used to work in a bank, and one of the things that she would do is simply look at the requirements, see whether you've met them, throw your application in the bin right next to her if you haven't even hit one, without telling you why, which is why she joined this upscale. She started upscale consulting. What are some of those things that we're missing out when we are applying for funding?
Good question there, and to some extent that's why some people are not able to raise capital. Essentially is because there are pertinent issues which need to be addressed for you to present your opportunity so that your prospect sees it as an opportunity worth putting money in. And how it's being presented is really what matters. Some key areas which are, when we look at the pitch deck and the business plan and the main areas which are very notably very sensitive in terms of starting with the team and whether they are really up to, they have the A game to be able to run the venture successfully. What is the model and the ability for it to be scalable, to make money, to create value for the investor. Have you thought about the risk profile and thought about all the mitigants around that? Have you thought about the financials and how you're going to make money and the projections that need to make sense? So again, issues around how the business is structured and the governance issues. Those are key and fundamental aspects which any financial or investor would be very interested to really understand. But some entrepreneurs are not able to articulate these areas, so they fall short, and for that reason, they are not able to proceed to get. For some financials or investors who are patient, and maybe it's just a small grain area, they will have patience to ask you to correct and work on it. But others, some of these opportunities you get once. And when you pitch and for some reason there's no chemistry again, also is something that also really is important when it comes to these issues, then they will not even go the extra mile to tell you, like you are saying in the banking, we just do the checklist, will not have the time to tell you, oh, you need to work on this and this, it will be next, So essentially, it's important that as you go to approach a financial or investor, understand what are the key aspects that you need to work on before you present yourself there, so that there is no areas where they can easily be pinpointed and right there you just lose an opportunity.
We are all coming to you after this.
I know. Like, why did we learn this in school? Like, we all went to campus. Why wasn't there a module on how to fundraise?
I just want to weigh in now on something around what he's talking about. Let's talk about the white capital. I mean, there's money here, you know, in Africa or in Kenya. We have to bring it closer. I don't know. I'm just thinking, could it be that the entrepreneurship ecosystem is not really understood by most people, and that actually it is an aspect, it's an area of, you know, investing